So I've seen the movie twice now, and it's safe to say I've formed an impression of it. Normally I'd just wait to actually do the review, but let's be realistic, that's probably a long while off. That said, these are my first impressions, and of course my opinions may change between now and then. I first saw the movie via the leak under the assumption that I wouldn't get to the cinema. I can't really travel, and I wasn't about to dodge spoilers for 5 months. I did wind up seeing it in cinemas a few days later when a family member offered to take me out of left field, however. I'm still not 100% sure why, but not like I'm complaining. I will say firstly that you should do yourself a favor and watch it in cinemas if at all possible. Not only for the legality, but there's a reason they stay in business despite being up against the convenience of things like Netflix, or, you know, piracy. As for the movie itself, my opinion started off fairly negative, but after the second viewing, they're more so just mixed now, though I'm not as perfectly shocked that critics aren't being kind to it. There are a lot of legitimate things to not like in my opinion, but that being said, there's just as much to enjoy, and let's be fair, just about everyone talking about this has some sort of bias. I think it would be better received if it started off on a better note though. The intro is paced very slowly for some reason, which given how much there is to introduce was a very confusing choice for me. I think you can see where this is going. The movie starts off on what I am now coining as Twilight's position for how often the franchise has this issue. I suppose it's a fitting start, but not necessarily a good one, especially for the amount of new viewers going into this. Sure, us fans have background cameos to distract ourselves with, which is nice, but the general viewer doesn't, and I think that was a mistake. I will say the animation was enjoyable, and I suppose that comes from being the first 2D animated film since The Princess and the Frog, but transitioning from the show to the movie was a bit jarring at first, though you do get used to it by the time the story picks up, which transitions nicely into my first major issue with this film. Once the story does pick up, it gets ADD until the climax. The pacing was all over the place, and that's not to say pacing isn't allowed to change, but it's very erratic here, and if I as a fan was distracted by it, then I can't imagine the general viewer was much better off. Given the villains are the very next thing you notice, I suppose I'll start there. Tempest was honestly a bit boring to me. Yes, she does make a good foil to Twilight, but that's not as impressive when she's the third character to do this. But what about new viewers, you might ask? Okay, it's not redundant for them, but her backstory is still flawed. Oh, some friends rejected me over an injury. Welp, I guess society is evil. You can't trust anyone. Better go off on my own and help this guy take over the world in exchange for re-enabling me. He totally seems like a trustworthy guy to repay me, even though he wouldn't have a reason to after essentially becoming a god. What? No, of course that's not ironic. What are you, stupid? But let's move on to something people won't hate me for saying. Grubber, yes that's his name, has his moments, but I think he gets annoying on occasion. Also, he doesn't really get a conclusion. He closes a door to get away from Tempest and Storm King, I don't blame him, and then is never heard from again. As for Storm King himself, he's a ham and he's fun, but he also doesn't show up much. I swear Sombra has more screen time. Also, a recent debate with a friend led me to realize another flaw. The lack of screen time makes it difficult to determine between hamish self-awareness and I'm the bad guy. Fear me as I tie this woman to a railroad while twirling my curly moustache. Onto a more positive note, there were a lot of creative ideas here. I especially liked what they did with the hippogriffs and the sea ponies, but I'm not going to go into details because it's really the biggest spoiler. I also got a kick out of many of the smaller bits. For example, there was a point where we get fun wordplay while the cast is discussing what they've heard about the hippos. I was also partial to the bits with Spike the pufferfish and Pinky's friend the skull. I will say though that I was honestly expecting to see a bit more locales and peoples, but seeing how random the pacing was as is, I can understand why we didn't see more. I've heard it said that those who don't like musicals probably won't have fun here, but I don't really care for musicals and I had no issues here except at the beginning, which I think even the most musically inclined among us can admit was a bit much, though I will say the transition between movie and song could get short at points. Overall, this movie is one of those things where you could respond with almost any opinion and find something to back it up. I thought it was just alright, but the issue is that episodes from the show like Amending Fences and Perfect Pair have led me to expect more. I was generally ignoring this movie until a week ago, so it's not like you can put that on hype culture either. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. This is Onyx the Dragon, signing out.